For those of you who were here earlier, you remember Kim Cutler, who is a writer for TechCrunch. She came to TechCrunch via Inside Network, where she has written for a variety of other publications throughout her history on mobile games, social games, and has generally followed the industry very closely. I will allow her to introduce her panel, where they're talking about mobile gaming in China, challenges and opportunities. You may sense a theme from the last couple of panels. These folks are some of the leading experts in the space, and we're glad to have them.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Mai. So I've covered gaming for TechCrunch for the last year and a half or 2 years or so, and I remember the first time that I visited Beijing, and back then, I think at the time there were like maybe 40 or 50 million iOS and Android devices in circulation, and every developer that I met there was really like kind of sad, and they were like, how do we get into the Western market, because we can't make any money in China at all. And then I went back a few months ago, and the market had reached like a workable scale where now there's like 300-400 million devices in circulation, and now you're looking at top games that are making, and I'll ask you those figures later, but like some companies out there have said they're making like $15 million per month, primarily from gaming in the Chinese market, mobile gaming in the Chinese market. So the market is a lot larger and a lot more interesting now, but it's also just super different from the US. Like they're completely different. There's a completely different strategy you need for app stores. There's a completely different strategy you need because there are different social networks. There are completely different ad networks. So with that, we have like a pretty good panel today. We've got 3 publishers that work with Western developers to come to the Chinese market, and they all kind of compete against each other. And then we have the Flurry of China with Linda, and we have Yannis from SponsorPay. So if you guys want to introduce yourself really quickly, that would be great.
Hello, I'm Linda Jiang. I'm from Youmeng. Youmeng is the largest analytic company in China, and we're now working with more than 14,000 apps and in China, and we reach about 400 million smartphones in China alone.
Hi, my name is Jeff Linden. I'm the EVP of iDreamSky and co-founder. We're one of the leading publishers in China. We publish for Fruit Ninja, Temple Run, Doodle Jump, and many more top and Western titles. Currently, we have over 260 million registered users with 60 million MAU and 25 million DAU.
Hi, I'm Fernando Pizarro, and I run North America actually for Papaya Mobile, which is a company based in China, and our CEO is in China, Shen. I'm probably unique in this panel in the sense that I represent both sides of the house. We both make and publish our own games in China and work with external partners to bring them to China. And we also run a cross-promotion exchange called AppFlood, which is obviously in the ad promotion space.
Hi, I'm Henry from Yodel One. Like Jeff, we help Western games developers monetize and distribute in China. I actually see some of our partners from ZECH Games. Mega Run and Mega Jump are doing very, very well. We publish for other Western developers from all around the world, including Defiant from Ski Safari from Defiant Development, Cut the Rope from Zepto Labs, and work with over 30 Western developers.
Hi, my name is Yannis. I'm the co-founder and CRO of SponsorPay. We power ad monetization, basically reward-based advertisements, so opt-in, video, and offer walls. And we basically empower developers to use these ad formats to steer their ad revenues. I think today I'll more talk about an outside of China, discovering what we see in terms of our network and sharing some excitement, but also some challenges we've seen in the past.
Okay. So I just wanted to start off with Linda, because you guys see everything and you see all the data. What are some of the interesting things you've seen like in the last 6 months, both in terms of the overall market size, like devices in circulation, breakdown of Android versus iOS, and then anything else that you just think is interesting?
Okay. Yeah, from our data, we can say in China, it's definitely a faster growing market. And we now can say it's about 400 million active devices in China. And 1/3 of them is iOS, and 2/3 of them is Android. So still Android has much bigger market share than iOS. And in terms of interesting, I think few kind of opportunities in China. So one thing is, I think we see in these years more and more people actually start playing game. And we look at the data from like by the end of last year, we saw more, nearly 40% increase in terms of the daily session on the games, and also the frequency on game as well. And also, I think interesting is, I mean, in China, most, for the game, more like, premium model, that's very kind of mature model in China. So it's very kind of, all the web game doing the similar thing. So we see there's kind of huge opportunity in China. And I think in terms also, another thing kind of say, the market growing really fast, because if we look at it just in June, the monthly activation is about 15 million.
Wow.
So it's kind of dramatic number, and we forecast, we forecast by the end of the year in China market, they're going to about 550 million active device in China.
And so the new Android devices that are kind of flooding the market right now, what's the make and quality of them, and how does that affect how people play with games? Are they like, they're really low-end kind of handsets, or they, like, what's the makeup of that?
I think it's kind of spread out. The top device in, through our network, we can say is actually Galaxy S3. The top one is Galaxy S3. So we see it's really spread out. The local manufacturer definitely kind of dominate the market. And but you got lots high-end, lot mid-end, lot low-end. So I think it's kind of, lots of people think in China all in low-end devices. That's not really true. High-end devices has lots of people actually use high-end devices as well.
And do you have any kind of insight into like how much the top games make, and then what's the like ARPDAU for a typical player of like a top-ranked game?
I think in terms of revenue, maybe Henry and Jeff can have more insight on that. Just in terms of one thing, I think maybe quite interesting about the behavior different between Western and the Chinese, and in China, and people less loyal. They really quite they spend a lot of time every day to play game, but they quickly to jump from one game to another game.
Okay. So maybe Jeff and we could talk a little bit about this, but what have you noticed in terms of like the types of games and genres that have become popular over the last year or two, and how has that changed as the Chinese market has matured?
Well, we started publishing at 2011, and we were seeing a lot of Western games getting very popular in China, like Fruit Ninja and Temple Run, for example. And Temple Run is just in one of the app store, which is the 360, is generating over 400,000 downloads a day. Still for us, and with Fruit Ninja, which is a 3-year-old title, is still generating over like 200,000 to 300,000 downloads just in 360's App Store. So what we're seeing is there's actually a lot of new gamers that is joining into the market, and to them, Fruit Ninja or Angry Bird is still new title to them. They feel it's kind of like, if I'm getting a new smartphone, I'm just joining the smartphone campaign. I have to download some of these games. But what I'm seeing also is in 2012, 2011, 2012, if you look at the top grossing chart, or you look at the top charts, it's mainly Western game. And now we're seeing that the trend is changing, where we see a lot more Korean, Japanese game coming into China, because Korean, Japanese game actually quality-wise is totally at the Western standard already. But on a cultural perspective, it's more closer to familiar with the Chinese gamers. So I think that the next trend that we're going to see in China is actually Korean and Japanese games start dominating the market, and eventually it will head on to the trend, which is like Chinese games just dominate the market, on both casual and on the mid-high core levels.
I think it's interesting because, like, if you look at Nexon, right, half of their business is already in China outside of mobile, right? And I think similar pattern will happen on mobile platforms as well, right? So.
Yeah. I'd actually like to add to Jeff's comments. So I think there's definitely more Korean games that we can see now. Some Japanese games starting to creep into the market. Western games that are not culturalized for the market, yeah, they're going to lose out. So the key thing is, if you're going to take China seriously, right, culturalize your games, not just in terms of language translation, right? What about the graphics, the theme of the game, the voice acting, if any, cinematics, gameplay, monetization methods, right? So really understand who your gaming audience is in China, and optimize your game and culturalize your game to that audience. And that's what makes any game successful, whether they're from the West, from China, from Japan, or Korea.
There's There's another thing to bear in mind too, which is that particularly for Western games going in, the bandwidth constraints in China are still very real. So some of the numbers that Jeff was talking about in terms of 360 is online distribution for these games. So you really need to get your package size down to sort of 20 to 30 megs for that initial distribution. I don't think a lot of people realize this, but most billing in China, we estimate actually over half of billing in China is SMS code billing. Yep. And sort of few people, or more, call it 70%. So that,
more.
Yeah, that use case is download via computer and then pay via SMS. So the distribution channel is via the computer, and those folks are very bandwidth constrained. And that's what's driving sort of the computer download thing. So SMS billing is an important thing to keep in mind as well, in addition to package size.
And I want to add one more thing of what that Linda just mentioned. You know, yes, in China there's a lot of high-spec device, but what we realized one weird phenomena is the higher the spec the device is, actually the opt-out or the willingness of the user paying is actually lower. Why is that? We did a lot of research ourselves, and we have a theory that we have is for players that actually have a high-spec device, yes, they have more money, and you would think that they're willing to pay more for games, but because they have more money, it means they're more educated. And when they're more educated, they know where to find pirated game. They know how to avoid paying for games. But on the lower spec device, they're like, you know, I don't know, like they're mostly living in the village or like in second tier, third tier city. The information that they get is less. Although they have less money, but in terms of disposable income for mobile, it's actually more for them because they don't have KTV, they don't have bars, they don't have movies to go to, they only have games to play with. So actually to them, it's like, you know what, 2 renminbi is 2 renminbi, fine. You know, I don't know where to get a pirated version anyway. I don't know how to go online and find whatever game. But with the device that actually like Samsung Galaxy S3, they're like, yeah, I know where to get it. You know, I asked my friend tell me where to get the version that I don't need to pay for it.
Yeah, I'd like to validate and confirm I wouldn't, not his hypothesis, the results, right? So definitely, if you look at the China mobile gaming market, over half the revenue is driven from what we call tier 2, 3, and 4 cities, right? So very low income, they might be only earning 300, 400 US equivalent per month, but they'll spend half of that on gaming, whether it's PC gaming in internet cafes or mobile gaming. You know, at home on the Android devices. And that's why compatibility on low-end Android devices is so important, because the guys that pay the most to play games use low-end devices. Whereas your Samsung Galaxy S3s and S4s, executives, businessmen, right, bringing out their flash 6,000 RMB phones, they don't play games, or they don't pay to play games. So that's actually not our target demographic. So you know, for Jeff and myself in particular, the rural people pay the bills for us.
Yeah.
So the three of you actually compete against each other. So I'm kind of wondering from each of you, like, why, if I'm a developer, I'm a Western developer, I want to come to China, like, why are you the best one to partner with? Out of the three of you. Like, give your reasons.
Well, I mean, it's Guanxi, right? So who has the best relationships is far and away the most important factor in securing distribution in China, making sure you get featured in the right app stores. And that's, you know, that's a thing that's difficult to evaluate, but it's generally a very high level thing between CEOs.
Yeah.
You know, even though the app store marketplace is quite fragmented, you can get pretty deep distribution by looking at, I'd say, 2 to 4 app stores or channels. So a combination of the biggest carrier, which is basically China Mobile. If you have something going to 360 or Tencent, and then you pick a few of the important third-party ones. Mm-hmm. And you know, our CEO has great relationships with those top CEOs. And mm-hmm. you know, once you get beyond that, then it's more about blocking and tackling, the ability that you as a developer have to deal with your publisher, whether it's through their presence here in the United States or a very clear communication channel to the China operations.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay, so it's a Chinese publisher showdown. Let me take my gloves off. I mean, from our perspective, we don't work with a lot of games developers. We're very selective. We have a lot of trust with our partners. And it's not just about reach, right? A lot of us have reach. Jeff has reach. I have reach. You know, Papaya has reach, all to varying degrees. But besides reach, does your partner know how to help you optimize your games, how to culturalize your games for the market, right? How to integrate with the 400 app stores, dozens of SDKs. China Mobile, yes. What about China Telecom? What about China Unicom, right? What about App Store payment for high output games with 360, right? With 91.com and the other 25 tier 1 partners in China. So, you know, does your publisher or co-production partner throw you a bunch of SDKs and say, integrate these, right? Give us a build, and we'll just whack it on the app stores for you, or are they going to work with you together and actually handle all of these for you? So, you know, that's kind of our differentiator anyway.
Well, you know, as most of you know, like recently, like Baidu have acquired 9-1 at the crazy valuation, 1.9 billion US dollar.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, but just,
Yeah.
you know, for the audience, explain why it was crazy.
It's a 177 times PE valuation,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't think I've heard of a 177 times. I mean, if you think about it, LucasArts was bought by Disney at,
Facebook, Instagram.
right,
It's
four.
like a million infinity.
Yeah, but like if you look at it, you know, App Store, there's millions of them in China, and if you look at Instagram, there's only one leading like photo sharing mobile app, right?
But what about Draw Something?
Well, draw something. Let's face it, like everyone knows is pretty like a no-brainer. Why would you acquire them at 200 million? I still don't understand that. But you know, going back to the topic, you know, as most people thought that, you know, as China market is consolidating, they can work directly with platform, you know, and I always give this energy to my partners, like, you know, platform in China, just like app stores in China, they're like a divorced old man, you know. They want to date your game, but they don't never marry your game. And we are the guys that will actually marry your game, you know, marry your girl, and actually work on it and make sure that, you know, it's pretty, and then we'll actually have a long and sustainable relationship with them, you know. And but with App Store, you know, to them, getting the newest app is the core thing. But having one app to make the most money for extended period of time is actually bad for that business, right? So with companies like us, iDream Sky, Yoda One, and Papaya, all our core competency is we can provide you the knowledge and even the development power to make sure that your game get the most local treatment in China. And with iDream Sky, you know, right now one of the things that is going for us is Tencent just announced that they will start working with third-party developers in WeChat. And right now there's 3 games that's announced. One is PVC, and the other 2 is Fruit Ninja and Temple Run. And iDream Sky have both of them. So, you know, iDream Sky currently is the only publisher that have announced titles in the WeChat platform. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of WeChat, what, you know, there's like, what, 11 games being tested right now. Like, what's your prediction 6 months from now? What does the mobile game market look like once they fully, like, roll that out?
You know, I think no matter it's Kakao or Line, you know, the biggest thing that they solve out for developer is exposure. You know, getting your app onto Apple is easy. Getting your app on Google Play is easy. But you know, getting the eyeball is the toughest part. You know, whether you go on 360, you go on Tencent, it's about getting that eyeball, right? And with WeChat, you know, definitely it gives you that sticky virality feature that WeChat have. And you know, I think 6 months from now, you know, for casual games, especially games that is very heavily on social graph and it's very casual, WeChat is going to be almost the most important platform you need to be on if you want to maintain your retention rate. If your game is more a game that requires high download volume,
Does it render the third-party app stores?
the other app stores.
I mean, do they get to coexist in that environment, or does that like really cut out their market share? What happens?
Well, I think the WeChat version of any games is going to be cut out from any other third-party app store in China.
So they're gonna negotiate for exclusivity.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Like it will be exclusive all everywhere. So another thing that is important to work with us publisher is we make sure that you get on everything instead of just get on one. Because if you go alone, you're weak. If you want developer going head to head against Tencent or 360 or Baidu, they will give you a term which is like exclusive me only. And that's it. And you only have like 1/3 of the market share. And each platform actually have his value in the ecosystem. With 360, it's about the mass appeal. If you want a mass appeal, you want a huge download volume, that's where you need to be on. 360 helps you do that. If you want if later on you want a high retention rate, you want more social feature, that's what WeChat comes in, right? Baidu helps you a lot on the search optimization, and general brand building. So the various app stores have various app store strength and weakness, and it's important for developer to understand where the game shines, and then understand like which platform to launch first.
What do you predict happens to rev share agreements? Because right now there's a couple different app stores, and like if you talk to game developers who've been there for like, I don't know, 10, 20 years, they're like, they remember the days of Tencent when it was like 90-10 revenue share, and Tencent took 90% of everything. And then right now it's like, the different stores, you talk to them, they're like 60-40, whatever, or 50-50. And that's kind of more favorable now. But now that Tencent's reasserting itself with WeChat, are we going back to like days where it's going to be like horribly 90-10 again?
I don't think so. I think in China, the App Store definitely quite powerful compared to the Google Play or App Store. But I think 360 still do 70-30 revenue split, and but Tencent I think probably going to be a little higher, but I don't think it's going to be like converse like they're going to get a 70 and 30. I don't think, because I think even our app stores still try to build the ecosystem. Although they're stronger, they're quite powerful, but I think in the long run, at least I hope, it's still a healthy ecosystem.
And I think the way to think about Tencent or any other new distribution channel is that it is a fragmented market, not only within the third-party app store space, where there are many app stores, but across various channels, right? So whether you've got the online distribution channel as against the carrier distribution channel, and then another big channel is obviously OEMs, which matters quite a lot still. So those channels are all competing against each other. So clearly Tencent's going to have a lot of market power, but I don't think, the monopoly power isn't going to be there.
Yeah, actually on that note, we predict that the next 12 months is going to be a shift in the balance of power as well in the App Store market in China. So the big guys, a lot of them are consolidating, but also the carrier app stores, China Mobile, Telecom, and Unicom, they're starting to assert themselves as well. Just say a year ago in the China market, the carrier app stores were, for lack of a better word, they were crap, right? They didn't know how to promote apps properly. They didn't know how to operate games properly, how to do editorials, features. Now they know, and they're starting to assert themselves. And we're seeing, through Yongmang's analytics numbers, we're actually seeing a big shift. More and more towards the carrier app stores, because every phone that you buy from China Mobile, they're going to preload their own app store client, and they're starting to muscle out the third parties as well. So obviously it's going to take time, but when there's 3 government-owned carriers, right, they pretty much do what they want, and they own the payment processing systems as well. So I think the carrier app stores will get a larger share of the download market over the next 12 months as well.
Wendy, can you share any stats that you have about the reach of the different apps? Like, what are the 3 to 5 most powerful ones? And then, can you share anything about WeChat's reach or active usage at all?
For our data, we say roughly the app store is still very fragmented, but top 10 app store all in take up about 50% of total download and activation. So, if you work in China, you're at least working with hundreds of app store. That you have to do. The most strong one, 360, 91 now is going to be part of Baidu, and Tencent. That's all quite strong one. Even if you think about user retention, user quality, Xiaomi, which is a Chinese manufacturer, their user is very good, very high quality user, so it's definitely good for the game. And in terms of WeChat, WeChat currently is not open for developer yet, still running the pilot program. So So they, we don't really have any data from them about in terms of the game.
What
Yeah.
they last said they had was it 200
300
million
million.
registered
Yeah,
users?
200 million registered users.
So,
Yeah.
so let me comment on WeChat. You're all familiar with Kakao, Line, how all of that works, right? So basically that's what WeChat is, right? Right now, there are no WeChat games per se, except for a few test games that Tencent have put out themselves. But they're in the process of bringing games onto WeChat, and Jeff has a couple. Hush hush, but we have some too. Not yet announced. But it's going to go for the same cycle as Kakao and Line, right? So we were talking with Sunday Toast, the guys that make Anipang, one of the first games that came onto Kakao, top grosser. And they basically said it was all about timing. They were one of the first games on Kakao, so they had all the attention. When you have several hundred million active users and they're all being funneled into 10 games, of course all those 10 games are going to get very rich, right? But now Kakao has, what, hundreds, thousands of games? Everyone is bitching because, their slice of the traffic,
It's much smaller.
yeah, they peak for one day and then they just drop like a rock, right? So, obviously WeChat has a bigger active install base than Kakao, but it's going to be the same phenomenon, right? Unless Tencent basically only allows 5 games or 10 games per year, which I don't think they will, right? Not after the initial launch.
After initial launch.
Right?
So what do you think is a time frame of WeChat becoming really crowded? So how fast do you have to move now?
I think you'll need to ask Tencent because we've been talking about WeChat becoming a gaming platform for at least 6-9 months, if not more.
Yeah, 6
right?
months at least.
And the first set of games from third-party publishers really haven't launched yet, right? So how fast they open that up, how many more games they take on, I don't think they've decided that policy internally yet. So it's really a wait and see.
The other thing which we haven't really talked about here, but it's clearly relevant in the market, is just piracy and the extent.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, no, but the extent to which Tencent is going to favor their own games versus third-party developer games, particularly if they resemble each other.
You mean Tencent pirates other people's games?
No,
God,
never
no.
say that. No, please. No.
Are you sure you want to say
Are you
that?
sure you want to see that?
I would
You
never
can record
say
it.
that. I would never want to say that. But
We
I
have
think
journalists in
that
the
there's
room.
clearly a question of whether or not you're going to favor own titles versus third-party titles, and I think that's the thing to bear in mind.
Yes.
Okay, let's say you're a top grossing game, you make $1 million. In the US market, it's like the math's pretty simple, right? 30% cut to Google Play or Apple's iOS store. What is let's say you make $1 million, where does that all go in the Chinese markets? How much goes to the carriers, how much goes to the app stores, how much goes to what?
It's pretty much standard for everyone.
Pretty much. So well, actually, let me elaborate a little bit. So depends on what kind of game, because there is a difference. So most games, particularly single-player games on Android, you're going to be using carrier billing, right? So the carriers are going to take a cut. They roughly 30%, but then refund rates, et cetera, et
bad
cetera.
debt and all that.
So about 35 cents on the dollar. And then there's going to be the app store in the middle, and different app stores, 3.7, 5.5, 6.4, basically will go to the app store, right? And the rest for the developer / publisher.
35 cents on the dollar back or what?
Anywhere from 35 to 50 if you do a carrier billing,
And then
right?
if they partner with you, then they get even less.
Well, lucky there are 1.4 billion Chinese people in the market, right? And the numbers are really big. But, for example, if you do a high ARPU online game multiplayer, a lot of people don't use carrier billing for that. So you use direct app store billing SDKs.
Online billing like Alipay.
Online billing like
ePay.
Alipay, right? Then, then it's just the app store and payment processing. So you'll get a bigger chunk.
So does that change the strategy that you recommend to developers on the types of games that they should make? Because a casual game, it sounds like you're just going to get so much less on the dollar back versus like a mid-core title.
No,
Yeah,
No.
you're gonna get 10 to 100 times the volume though, so
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
totally different.
Yeah, casual game you have much mass appeal, like like
easier
there's
to
no
localize.
there's no like even for Ski Safari or Fruit Ninja, there's no like online mid-core game can compare with the sheer download volume that we're getting. Like we're getting like 200,000 to like 500,000 download a day per day
Yeah.
on casual games, and you'll be lucky to get like 500,000 download for an online game, like a mid-core online game for a month,
Yeah.
right? So like it's just a sheer volume difference.
Let me think. What else? Is there beyond like the two big things that I like have been watching the last 3 months since I was there. I mean, that's the Baidu 91 deal and then WeChat. Is there anything else out of left field or anything else that it's kind of top of mind that you're watching, just to be a concern to a developer, a Western developer?
So just now I was saying that the Korean and the Japanese window is opening up. So I think for Western developer it's very crucial in the next 9 to 12 months to really come into China and establish your brand. Because if your brand is not established in China, your next 12-month onward road will be very hard to get into China. Because at the end of the day, people like publisher like us or even app stores, recognize brand, and if your brand is not there yet, then your bargaining chip is much lower in the future. So, even though you might not have the best game right now, but it's important to get into China as soon as possible when you still can have some more bargaining chips. And in the later launch of your game, then you can have a track record to negotiate with other publisher or other platform and say like, hey, my last game in China have been performing like this, so please take my game and I want the same deal, instead of like 6 months, 12 months down the road, you have no track record. Maybe you have a very good game, but then like app stores and platforms will say like, what, I don't know what your track record is in China, and this is the deal that we're offering right now, and take it or leave it.
The other thing I'd like to address is what you brought up before, right, about piracy in China.
It's better now-ish. Like, I mean, there was the Taobao black card stuff last year.
Who's had their game pirated in China? So,
Yeah.
well, here's the message: embrace piracy, right? And here's why: you can't stop it. And I'm sure Jeff knows this trick too. We use it a lot. So games that have millions or tens of millions of pirated copies active in China, we love publishing those games. Why? We culturalize it, we optimize it, we inject payment methods into it, and then we push an update. And because we have relationships with all those app stores, that's free distribution for us. Next time the user updates, they're getting a fully functional, fully culturalized and optimized IAP-enabled version, rather than a broken, pirated version.
And I want to add on with Henry's point is, if you look at it, yes, maybe there's 10 people that pirated your app, and you think that you lose like $10 out of those 10 people, you don't really do that. Because what we find out is that 10 person that pirated your app, 8 of them will never play your app is not pirated, probably. 7 to 8 of them is like, I just play pirated app anyway. So, actually you're just losing 2% or 3% money, right? But then for your brand, your reach is much higher. Because originally, if your app only have a legitimate version, you can only reach maybe 12%, but because of the piracy, you reach to 30%. And through time, like, actually, I got a tweet a couple months ago, is a high school kid. He used to be a high school kid, and he wrote to us and say like, I want to pay for like Fruit Ninja, and I'm like, and he goes like, because I've been playing the pirated version when I was in the school, and I don't have money to pay for it, and because now I'm working and I have money, I want to pay for it. So it takes time to educate them, and actually at the end of the day, I think Chinese user would like to pay if they can pay, and if they can afford to pay.
And if you make payment easy, right?
Yes.
So don't make them jump through 8 hoops just to pay.
So purely from a content perspective or a product perspective, what has made Western titles like Candy Crush Saga, Ruby's Angry Birds, Half Bricks, like not counting all the distribution partnerships and relationships with the app stores, but what is it about the games and the gameplay itself that can make a Western title work or like move successfully into the Chinese market?
I mean, the guys both called out both, culturalization in addition to localization. So for instance, we did work with iBomber recently, and that's a World War II bombing game. And the localization for that actually involved changing it around so that the islands in the game became the Jiaoyu Islands. There's a lot of things that you can do that go beyond just translating. So I think that's pretty important. I don't know if there's much to add to that from a content. I mean, casual games are much easier to relate to, right?
I think, like a lot of Western developers, when they're making games, they assume their audience knows how to play games. So in China, that's not really true. That's why Fruit Ninja and Angry Bird and Temple Run, these kind of like really simple games work really well for them. It's because actually like it can be a person that have never played game, and when he pick up a game like Angry Bird or pick up a game like Temple Run, he will be able to play it right away. But with a lot of other Western game, which is more even in Western market considered casual, to a lot of new Chinese player. For example, if you give them a game that is like a Street Fighter style game, right? If you give it to a Western gamer, you see a D-pad, you see a punch, you see kick, you already assume that, okay, maybe I do like down, left, right, punch, I will get something, right? But if you give it to a new Chinese gamer, which have never even played game before, like this is the first game he ever played, you give it a game like that, he'll be like, what the hell, what should I do? He would not think of like, oh, I should put in like, formulas of codes to fight,
Yeah, it's basically broad demographic appeal, right? Yeah. Games that you can pick up, and as a first-time gamer playing on a smartphone device, you'll be able to, enjoy in a very short period of time.
If your target market are these like tier 2, 3, 4 cities, people living in these cities, how do you test for that? Like, how do you UX test for that? Do you go out there and give people the game and then watch them? Yeah.
Yes, I travel the countryside.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if they've never picked up a game before, or if they've never picked up a smartphone.
iDreams Guy did a event a couple months ago in Foxconn. Okay. So we actually did a deal with Foxconn Entertainment Group, which is, because after all those bad press happening in Foxconn, they actually start up like a department in Foxconn, which is entertaining their staff. And iDreams Guy actually was managed to get hold of them, and we actually have a 1 month period in. We locate ourselves in Foxconn, like we have like set up booth in Foxconn in their cafeteria area, and we have like testing machine for them to play like the newest game and give out like coupon codes and stuff like that. And that's how I realized, like, because I put out like some of the most casual, easy games onto those kiosks, and then our helper will come back and say like, people don't know how to play Jetpack Joyride.
That's really, they're making these phones and they don't know how to use them. It's
Yeah.
Ironic.
It's a different discussion. Yeah.
Wait, were you going to add something or no?
Yeah, actually. So, A/B testing is actually really easy in China because there's so many app stores. So, and we pick one app store, we push an app out on that app store, obviously using a lot of real-time analytics. So to look at the retention data, look at the daily active usage, and that's what really gives out. It doesn't matter what we think about a game. We could be right, we could be wrong, but data doesn't lie. So, we do a lot of A/B testing on separate app stores. And because many of these app stores have very specific demographics.
Like,
if
can
you
you
know,
give an example? Like, what's
Yeah.
the 360 App Store user? What's a 91 user?
Right. Well, actually, let's go even more extreme, right? The carrier app stores, China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom, their users are actually the highest quality.
Really?
They convert the best,
Okay.
right? So, for example, with a single-player casual game like Ski Safari, we can get up to 30% free-to-paid conversion.
Wow.
It's huge,
Yeah.
right? Because they're, basically they're not as technical, right? They open up their phone. Oh, it's the China Mobile App Store. Download a game. Click. Oh, 2 RMB. It's done. It's paid, right? What we call open market app stores, which like Baidu, like 360, like 91. Typically, that user base broader, but also more technical. So, but even then, we get like 10 to 12% conversion rates on the title, which is still high by Western standards, simply because the payment friction is so low. Mm-hmm. So, the really only real way to find out whether a particular game is going to distribute and monetize well, you have to put it out there in A/B tests. So, it's just like in Western markets, how you geo-test in Canada, right? So we kind of geo-test with.
Where do you recommend geotesting in China? What's the prime testing store?
91, we do a lot of geo-testing with 91,
Okay.
but depends on the game. If you got an online game, if you're like an RPG,
Yeah.
online RPG, UC is a good geo-test market. Anji, huh? Yeah, D.CN is good for, they've got a very particular market as well. So particularly kind of gamers. Some are good for collectible card games, some are good for ARPGs, so you just got to know your App Store demographics.
So, I mean, I think Jeff, what you were saying earlier, if you think the window is so tight to break into the Chinese market at all, like, and then it's going to be controlled by, Korean and Japanese developers, and then maybe like the really high quality Chinese developers, like, why shouldn't a Western maybe a Western developer should write it off because it's so difficult or complicated to compete against the local developers? Like, why are you arguing that they should even go there?
I've been talking to a lot of Western developers, and I won't name names, but there's actually a lot of Western developers starting to write off China and say, like, I don't want to distribute my apps in China. I just want to get apps from China distributed in US, right? And these are some of the biggest publishers in the market. But I think, some of these Western apps have a big opportunity in China, and especially with like indie developers, which I love working with indie developers because they're more innovative and the game quality tends to be higher and interesting. If we can manage to establish a brand and bring it up to the level which is kind of like Fruit Ninja and Temple Run, then actually it just automatically keep making money. Like with Temple Run and Fruit Ninja right now, we almost don't need to promote it anymore in China. Even in US App Store, the ranking is dropping. You look at China App Store, Fruit Ninja is still in the top 10, almost any App Store that you can find. Temple Run 2 is still doing like #1 download on 360, is still doing #1 download on 91, UC, and various places. Because we managed to get it onto the level which is now considered as a brand. It's not anymore as a game. Like people will consider it as to the point where it's like, if I get a new smartphone, if I just joined the smartphone bandwagon, I have to download this game because this is the game to experience on my smartphone, right? So Western games tend to have that kind of capability. If you look at Korea and Japanese game, most of them are like Korea games is now going on to the mid-core route, and Japanese game is all card battle. Like I'll be surprised you can find a game that's made in Japan that is not card related. I was in Japan for like a week, and every single meeting I go in is I have a card battle game, and I'm like, okay, so what's the different? Oh, I have a different IP, or you can turn your card like this way, and his game can turn the card that way, But that's the culture in Japan, like. So I think with Western game, the casual window is pretty open. If you look at Candy Crush, is opening up a whole new like casual gaming ground for Western market.
I mean, I think it was the Q1 sort of Q1 this year flurry numbers showed that China had gone from I think it's 4th in value but 2nd in volume. I mean, it's just you can't ignore that. I think that's what it really comes down to. And even though things have been difficult and continue to be more complicated perhaps in terms of market entry than some other markets, it's getting to the point where you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's binary. I don't think the point about a 12-month window is binary, right?
Yeah.
It's still huge.
I think I look at it a little bit different. I think the next 2 years will be very tough for developers generally because there's so much competition out there. And so I think you want to make a decision. If you find a casual hit, right, then you want to spread it all over and you want to go really deep with rather less games but higher quality ones. And I think then, probably Chinese opportunities is interesting. If you don't feel you've landed the hit and you really create a great IP, which is easy to understand, I think it's foolish to think that it's easy to introduce. I mean, it seems that what we are seeing from our numbers is there's no question that this is a huge market, a huge opportunity. It's more a matter of can you actually tackle it really well, and I think that's really the challenging part. And I don't believe if you don't have a really strong IP that you can that it's easy to tackle. So that's what we're seeing a lot.
We're actually seeing a different thing, honestly. So Jeff was mentioning that some Western developers are saying that aren't interested in China. We get 250 game inquiries every month from Western developers wanting to come into China. So the demand is definitely rising, right? And the level of interest from Western developers are rising. But you know, with limited production capacity, right? I mean, how many games can you really promote a month, right, Jeff? Obviously, we're getting choosier, right? There's no way we could publish 250 games a month and still do justice for each game, right? So obviously, we need to control how many titles and what quality of titles we help bring into the market so that we can put all of our considerable resources behind those titles.
So we're running out of time, but I want to leave a few minutes for the audience to ask some questions. So does anyone out there have a question they want to ask? Yeah.
Yeah, obviously you guys have distribution power, but how much do you guys charge? You know, monthly guaranteed and rev shares, and do we have to pay for extra development costs?
You want to go first, Jeff? I'm being polite. You know?
Yeah. You know, it really varies from, you know, what quality you have, you know, is about business negotiation, right? But in general, you know, I don't think any of our partners have paid us any money because we did something for them. Mostly, we just pay money to our partner. There's only one scenario where we ask our partner to pay us is they want us to help them to go through the trademark registration, and we said like, hey, then you need to pay the lawyer, and I'm not charging you, but you need to pay the lawyer yourself because the trademark is yours, not mine. But generally, I don't think, you know, if you're working with a publisher, you need to pay them to do anything. Second of all is, in terms of minimum guarantee and rev share, is varies differently for iDream Sky. Normally, we like this year, whatever game we take up, I think 90% of the game that we take have minimum guarantee involved. And it varies from, you know, 4-digit to anywhere to 6-digit US dollar minimum guarantee per year. In terms of rev share, is with iDream Sky we're doing a tier-based rev share model, which is tied into our performance. So you know, if we're performing better, then we want more rev share. If we're performing less, then we take less rev share from you.
Yeah. So I said at the outset that Papaya is probably a little bit unique in that we have two sides of the house. So we have the advertising side of the house and the publishing side of the house. For us, where we work with partners to bring them into China, we've actually incorporated the China Mobile Payment SDK into our own. So there's a rev share on that, and we also, you know, to the extent that there's charges for localization, sometimes we end up splitting those with the partner. We see the primary benefit as actually helping the ad business in that case. So, and we make money on the advertising. So.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. If you have to pay your publisher to publish your app in China, find another one. Jeff has these cards here. I have my cards here. So, yes. You know, the fact of the matter is that how much can your publisher help you with getting your app ready for China, right? From a localization, culturalization perspective, changing the core game mechanics, game design, new creatives. So we work on a co-production model. So the fact of the matter is, if you've got a completely Western-focused, Western-themed game, our production studio will work with you, invest in culturalizing the game for the market. And you know, we have pretty standard terms. We're pretty transparent, so we will never ask you to pay us money. So it's a business model. If a publisher is not making money with you and is making money off you, there's certainly something very wrong with the relationship.
But if you guys are really transparent, I mean, like, what's kind of back of the hand rev share? That
Oh, I can tell them right now. So it's 50-50.
Yeah.
So,
are you 50-50? You're 50-50.
Yeah. I'm not 50-50. We start with 70-30. Like if we really like perform really badly, then it's 70-30 to you. But it gets to 50-50 too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, but you know, if you look at really, it's about how much value a publisher provides, right? So if we invest 3 months in helping you culturalize the game, optimize it, right, and then invest marketing budget upfront to promote it, you know, we'll give you all of the rewarding, you know exactly how much we spend, how many resources we spend on it. So,
Do we have any other questions?
This question's for Linda. So I know one of your competitors is Talking Data, and you guys said you're the leading company as far as.
Wow.
Wow, what?
No.
What was that?
Okay, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. One of your competitors is Talking Data. They do analytics as well. What's the market share between the both of you guys? Because they tout like 60 to 70% market share as far as analytics.
who did you hear that from?
Who do you hear that for? Yeah.
Presumably from them.
Okay, yeah. I mean, first thing, we don't say they are our competitor, and they doing analytics, we do analytics, but their approach is more like a consultant-based approach, and we are more like a analytic platform, third-party analytic platform. In terms of the developer base, we've been working on this area for 3 years now, and we're working with more than 130 apps, and definitely the number one in the market. And is that answer your question?
Any other questions before we wrap up?
None? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, with that, I'd like to thank Kim Mai and the rest of the distinguished panel. Thank you very much.